KKHT wants you to meet three of the classiest guys in real estate. The Real Estate Rat Pack. They're here to take your calls and answer your questions live. Call now 1-800-808-5548. And now, the Real Estate Rat Pack.
Welcome to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show.
With your hosts, Chris, Joe, and Rob.
There you go. You don't do it as well as Sigmund does it, but
Yeah.
it's a good job.
You're here to take your calls live.
So, I took the small plane down to Galveston over the week. We did our HAR strat planning, and then I wanted to do a shout out to Jim Sherry, who came in from Florida and was one of our strategic partners in leading the HAR into the future. And also we have Mr. John Gormley, who's with the Texas Association of Realtors, who also came down for strategic planning. And I want to kind of do a shout out to him. Hopefully he's still tuned in because he says he's driving back to Austin today and was going to tune in. And then I'm sure when he tuned in at 9 o'clock and that area goes, oh, that Rob, I just can't,
He's pulling my leg.
Well, the great thing is we have a show going all the way through right now, so we have plenty of time to talk.
That's right.
So
we mean
who needs sponsors?
Yeah, we may not even have a break today. We might just kind of play it all the way through.
We're going to go all the way through today. That is correct.
So, and I also had to do a shout out to Capital Title, who we went out to their I guess it was
I don't know. Tailgating
party. That is
without
correct.
tailgates.
That is correct.
So our thanks to Michael Board for putting that on, and the Rat Pack showed up in its entirety.
In its entirety, right there. We had a great time out there. Looking forward for J.J. Watt and that defense to tame DeMarco Murray and Tony Romo and come out with a W on Sunday.
We already a game ahead of where we were last year at this time. So hey, it's a winning season.
That is correct.
I am very excited to have Curt Beardsley here from Zillow, and Curt has been kind enough to come join us at our strategic planning at the Houston Association of Realtors for the last 5 years. Is that right, Curt?
That's right.
And he is such a wealth of information. A lot of associations look at Zillow as being the enemy. We have learned so much from this man, and he was formerly with Move.com, which owns Realtor.com.
Oh, wow.
But he got a lot more freedom once he got to Zillow, because Zillow is not controlled by 800 board of directorship. So
just 800, right?
800. So
we're a little faster.
Yeah. So what we are talking to consumers today, and you're used to talking to industry leaders, and so putting your consumer hat on, talk about the consumer relationship with Zillow and what you're providing. Talk about Dig, talk about all the different components that people can utilize.
Well, and also, Rob, just real quick, because were I not the real estate Rat Pack host that I am, and Googled Curt. Sorry, Curt. Hope you enjoyed it. I wouldn't know Curt's background and all that sort of thing, and he's got a really pretty lengthy career and history in connected to real estate
he's a
and
rock
that sort of
star.
thing.
He's a
yeah,
total
absolutely.
rock star.
So just hey, let the listeners know a little bit about yourself and that sort of thing, and what got you to Zillow.
Well, it starts about 22 years ago, and I had actually got my degree in philosophy and thought that's the direction I was going to go. But on the sidelines, I taught
Why, he's a great storyteller.
I taught myself programming, and so those were kind of before the days of formal computer science degrees, etc. So I hooked up with a small software development company that did mapping software, and we were in the business of trying to help banks prove that they didn't do redlining. And this is pre-Windows, pre-Google Maps, all that stuff. And so we had this little software company, but we didn't have enough banks getting sued. And so we had dead time. And so we said, what are we going to do with this mapping software? And
starting a law firm wasn't an option.
Yeah, we saw real estate and said, people need to help finding their homes. And so that's how we sort of stumbled into the real estate space. And then we had this idea, what if we actually made this information more easy to get to, more available to people, and didn't have these arcane systems that they had back then. And so we started this idea of freeing information, getting it out there on the Internet, and the Internet was just coming along. And so we developed in my little company the first web-based or Internet-based MLS system in the country. And that went along pretty well for a couple of years, and along came a company called GTE, you may remember it, phone company. They bought us up, and suddenly we were in the big leagues, and GTE played in that space for a while. Now fast forward, I spent a lot of time in telco, and then went back into the real estate side, joined Move about 10 years ago, spent 10 years with them, and now switched to Zillow. And this thing that started out way back as the internet has really, really changed a lot of pieces of how people consume information. Because we expect, as a consumer now, to have all the information available to us. And so that we can actually do that study. And so we know that people get on the internet, and they're on the internet for about 6 to 8 months longer than they used to, looking at homes, doing research. They're very, very educated in that. They spend all that time. They even find that the house that they're most interested in, whittle it down to just those few, and then they want to connect with a professional. And that's where Zillow comes in. So we're the largest real estate network on the web. We had 84 million users on our site last month, and that's growing. We're growing exponentially every year. And what we do is we put out as much information as possible. So we're not afraid of good, bad, or otherwise. We'll show that to the consumer. They get engaged with that. And then we have professionals on there that they can either connect to rent, or connect to buy, or connect to find out about mortgage information. And then that's where that piece, where it goes from the online world to that personal connection world.
You know, I love the way you mentioned, you're the largest online network for real estate professionals.
Right.
One of the things we talk about is in today's market, technology has completely changed not only the way agents do business and mortgage individuals do business, but the way the consumer does business back with you. And Zillow's done a great job as far as creating a national website to allow individuals to go to. And as you mentioned, network with other professionals, network with other individuals, look at things in other areas they might not have. I mean, where do you sort of see the future as, we being in technology, we talked about this, we talked about where it was back when you were doing some software about redlining, right? You see today, what do you see going forward? How do you see some of those changes in the market?
So the big change is really happening in the mobile space. The world is going mobile, and we all know that, and it's been creeping up on us. It's one of those things that, we see it coming, and all of a sudden we realize, wow, that's a tidal wave, and it's coming. So we actually have close to 70% of our traffic now on mobile. And,
wow.
And when you think of the mobile device, not only is it portable, of course, but it's also very personal. I mean, we don't hand our phone to somebody else. It's a personal experience. So it's an emotional thing. I get attached to the content in my phone. And so when the home shopping experience goes to the mobile environment, not only is a place where I gather information, but it's a place where I make connections. We all have kids.
Right.
And although we think of it as a phone, they don't. They think it as a place where their friends live. So I'll talk to my son. He's a sophomore at the University of Washington. So he's a Husky. And
Go Huskies.
Go Huskies. And I'll say, did you hang out with your friends today? And he said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." I said, "Did you leave your room?" He said, "Oh no." And how does that work? Because in my environment, when I grew up, that required actually stepping outside to hang with your friends.
That is so true.
And he said, "No, I was on my computer. I was on my phone. That's where they are." And so gathering information is no longer the sole domain of the computer. It really is a communication connection. It's where you make those bonds, and it's actually where you can start moving from the online to the online communication world, where you're still in an online environment, but you're actually personally connecting with people.
Right. One of the things we see, like we were at a party last night, right? Everything's Facebook, right? Everything. I
was at church.
Facebook. You were at church, right? Yeah, Joe was at church.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
But
we have pictures.
One of the things that we always talk about, though, is while technology is really good and while mobile is absolutely the next wave of the future, it's also important to have that touch and that feel and that socialization aspect of whether it be buying a mortgage or getting a mortgage or buying a home or anything associated with that. And so, that's one of the things I think that the next wave of technology is not only going mobile, but it's also how to entice people then to be more face-to-face at the same time by utilizing technology to be one of those factors.
Technology also brings more people into the fold.
Right.
And you think of real estate, and you think of obviously the professionals, the realtors who create that content, put that content online. But consumers are getting engaged. So Zillow, when they started, it's much bigger than just what's for sale. We have every single home in the United States on there. So it's the 110 million properties. So if you own a home, it's on Zillow.
Okay.
And so there's 3 million that are for sale, but the world of real estate is much bigger than that. And so we have now consumers going in there, claiming their own homes, making edits to the information on their own home because that's their piece of information.
We're going to make it bigger.
It's like,
right.
It must be true because it's on the internet.
It's like, well, you have a Facebook page, and so that's your social friends around there. You also have a home page, and it's about your house, and that's on Zillow. So we've had over 50 million consumers go online and interact with their own house on Zillow. That's phenomenal. That's
right.
a whole
We actually started tracking that trend. It was called Internet 2.0 is when we realized probably 10 years ago that the people who are going to be successful are interacting with the consumer, not just a static web page people go to and get info. They really want to be able to interact, to comment, to get feedback, to have a virtual conversation with.
And it's not just with their property. None of us would go to a hotel without looking online to see what the ratings or reviews are. We go to Yelp to see, if this is a good restaurant, and if we've had a bad experience, we go and we let them know through that. So the whole idea of ratings and reviews is really key. And so one of the things that consumers then can also interact with is the professionals. And so on Zillow, we've had over 700,000 professionals rated. And so the consumers will come in and say, I had a great experience. This was phenomenal. This is exactly the help that I needed for that. And that's a key part of consumers connecting with professionals, is seeing what interactions other consumers had with them.
Well, it's really fascinating to me from an information standpoint. Rob will quote this stat on a regular basis that the average age of a realtor is 57, right? And I think I shouldn't. I have to be careful how I word this, right? That there can be
keep your job.
God, Joe, you never been
there can
before.
be a pushback, not just against Zillow by any means, but just against technology. The older you get, the more entrenched you become in what has worked for you, and the less inclined you are to embrace the change aspect. From a younger generation, that's not an issue. And I had to laugh when you were talking about your son. My daughter dated somebody for 2 years that she met online who was in Virginia. She's like a teen, So and now her current interest is in London. And that was just not the world we lived in.
At least you don't have to buy a shotgun in that case.
Right, I know. I love it. I'm like, I hope y'all are exclusive. You can date this guy in London all you want, until he can, fly, and then things change. But
I think you got to break up right away.
Technology has changed the world, but it really is a tool. And,
absolutely.
And we've had a tremendous number of successful agents that are in the demographic you say may not be the one that would grab onto technology, but they understand the role of it. They understand that it is
that's
like
critical.
Anything else in your life, it's a tool that you use to connect with people, to get them through that transaction. Now, what has changed with the internet, and this is where technology has changed, it's changed the role of the professional, changed the role of the realtor a little bit. They're no longer the place where you go to get information.
Absolutely.
Because you can get that. What it's done is now that you have that information, you may actually, as a consumer, often know more than the realtor about a particular house because you've been studying it and everything else for a long period of time. But what you need is help with that transaction. I mean, this is the biggest event of your life. This is the biggest financial transaction. To have someone come alongside you and say, I'm going to walk you through that. I'm going to steer you around the pitfalls. I'm going to make sure this is successful. That's what it's all about.
Deciphering that
That's
information.
Right. So what Zillow is, it's that community, it's that connection, it's the place where you gather that data, and then you can actually connect with the person that you want to work through that transaction.
And biggest fear a long time was Zillow. Zillow really came from 0 to number 1 in like 12 months.
Right.
They did one thing that consumers wanted. They wanted to go unfettered and find out what their house was worth. And it just took off. Of course, they had some great brains behind Zillow, like Rich Barton and things like that had done Expedia. So they kind of had some experience about the consumer and wanting to do things unfettered. Just do it online. I don't really need this, but it didn't disintermediate the realtor.
No.
Because it's still a relationship business, and finding the house. I mean, you can throw a rock anywhere in Houston, you're going to hit a house.
Right.
It's getting it closed where a great professional can shine.
I would agree.
Period. And you're not trying to put us out of business.
No, absolutely not. In fact, what it's done is actually made we as a people love our homes, and as Americans we do, and we're just fascinated by them. It's part of our identity is to have our house, our piece of land. But we're not the only ones. So the world is bigger. And so, last year we had $22 billion of money come in from China. There's money flooding in from South America buying property here. And so the whole idea of being able to bring a bigger audience into this environment and have them connect with these properties is not only great business for the realtors here that can get part of that, but it's just also it's part of the American way. It's part of a way of connecting with our picket fence and our house that's there.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you the tough question. I got to ask it because, you've not always been the hero to the realtors. And they said, those estimates, we're having to tell our clients, those estimates are wrong and they're inaccurate, which is why they don't call them as appraisal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of address that and maybe talk about the algorithms that you all use to extrapolate valuations and of course, always contact a realtor after you do this, right?
That is correct.
Well, absolutely, yeah. It's not an appraisal. It is it's a computer estimate of what the value of the house would be, and it is based really on a lot of data that we know about the house. And one thing that's here in Texas is non-disclosure state, so often we don't have sales data, and so that makes the Zestimate a little bit less accurate than it would be in some other parts of it. But here's the thing about the Zestimate and the professional. It is always a place where a conversation can start. Because if someone says, hey, this is right or this is wrong or what can you do, bam, you've got a conversation point there that you can then pick up on. And as a professional, you can say, well, that's where the computer starts at. Now let's step to the next level. I'm a professional. I've been through this neighborhood. I'm going to walk you down the last 10% into accuracy for that and actually get you what you really need.
Do you guys find that there's any do y'all get any pushback or pain point back from the consumer on the accuracy of it? Do y'all ever hear that? Or is it solely limited to the real estate community that complains about it?
No, it's fine. It comes from all over, but and in different ways. So one of the features actually that you can do on Zillow is as either a professional or as a homeowner, is you can go on there and you can, because we display everything, you can actually put a comment in. And so you can say, hey, I don't believe this estimate is correct. I've done all these things to my house. I believe it should be higher. There's one I saw just a little while ago. It was actually in the Seattle area. I think this estimate was $1.68 million. And the homeowner had gone down there and said, no, I believe my house is actually worth 1.8. So he was disputing about 2% value difference there. He says, because I put hardwood floors in and I did all this work. And so yes, people get engaged with it for that. But what it is, it's a great starting place. It allows you to from a trend standpoint, to really understand what's going on in the market. And then when you are ready to do that transaction, that's where the professionals come in and close out those numbers.
I feel a kinship with this issue because being in the credit industry, there are consumer reports. They have their scoring algorithm. Lenders have their scores, and so we're constantly facing this issue of varying numbers that people are very attached to and very concerned about. So I feel the pain on it, and it's interesting to me to see how consumers react to it and respond to it.
But one thing that consumers are very clear is that they love them. And and so it's part of what they want.
Oh, I would agree. One of the things I think was very neat that you said that, though, is, I had a home that I was selling last year or the year before, and this estimate on it, by the way, showed it was worth a lot more than I ended up wanting to sell for. I've got a home right now that I live in that I know is worth a lot more, that his estimates come back a lot less than I know. So I like the way, that's one of the questions that somebody always asks is why, and it's a starting point for a conversation. That's probably a really good way of saying is that's why you engage with a professional. That's why also you want to go with a professional, a local professional, to say it's a starting point of the conversation, but there's a lot of different factors. And, as you mentioned, it's not as appraisal. Appraisals are completely different.
Very different.
An appraisal really goes out and looks at data for the past 6 months and says, here's the most comparable analysis of what your home is worth based upon.
And again, I have to defend Zillow on this point, is that we do not send them sold data. And we are one of a few states that is a non-disclosure state. Doesn't mean you can't disclose it, they don't have to disclose it. So in other states, you're pretty unfettered because you get fed the sold data, and therefore it's a lot more accurate.
Correct, and so we're having those conversations with brokers and MLSs right now, because if we did receive the sold data, there's a couple of ways we could deal with it. One, we would help improve these estimates, but we don't have to display the sold data. We just use it internally, and so that way we keep within the non-disclosure parts of it, but we also clean up and make the data more accurate.
A lot of realtors aren't really anxious to have you be accurate, to be honest. They really would. This is our business, and there's Zillow walking in and taking over our business.
But we're never going to be 100%. Our goal is to get really close so that the distance that you have to, as a professional, move that consumer to the right spot is less, and that makes it easier for everybody.
But Zillow has become so much more than that, and we're going to talk about that a little bit with Kimberly, is that you've partnered with realtors. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, you have 60,000 realtors now who are premier agents on your market. What do you do for those agents that kind of spotlights them and makes it? And they're always producing agents. You don't have the non-producing agents usually buying the services.
So we start with a huge audience. So again, we have 84 million people and on our website and mobile, and that's across AOL, Yahoo, MSN, and one of the largest Chinese portals actually dumps into Yahoo as well. So we have this huge audience there, and we're a media site. And so what we do is we have very strategic ad placements. And so when an agent comes and says, I'd like to get exposure because I'm building my business, we can build a plan for them, and we can start putting them on our site as a professional. And then when they get ratings building up and they have transactions in their past, we identify those to the consumer. And so just like ads that you have anywhere to begin to build brand recognition, agents and brokers and brands start using our site to promote their brands, promote their abilities, and then connect with those consumers. Because consumers will, at some point, if they're going to be transaction ready, want to connect with a professional, and they need to find out where they are, and we are the place where they go to do that.
I remember my first transaction with a Generation X person. It was awesome because they'd already researched everything. They kind of narrowed it down to about 4 or 5 houses. I showed them those 4 or 5 houses, and they made a decision on one of them. And it's like, wow, I like this. And so the same thing's happening with Zillow.
Well, you quiet now.
See, Chris is over there.
I don't know. Chris is
signals
pointing up. I don't know if he's trying to give credit to God or if there's something else going on.
I always give credit to God. What are you talking about?
What are you saying over there, Chris?
Nothing. I was just saying we are live on air and it feels good.
We are actually on air. You confirmed it. Oh, that's good.
We are having
that's
a little
good.
bit of difficulty into our
much to the credit of the
like
young
that.
man here who was randomly pushing buttons
we'll
and
make it up to you and things like that.
got us on air.
This is the first time for us, so we're kind of free falling.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct right there.
From as a philosophy guy, one thing that I really kind of like is that information and disseminating information has always been produced a wonderful thing in society. And if you look at the Dark Ages, and there was a body of people who were trying to retain the information and stay in control of information. And at the point at which we created the press and Gutenberg did his thing, well, we entered into the age of enlightenment,
right?
And the Renaissance, and this fabulous explosion of creativity and art and everything else. And I kind of look at it similarly. It's perhaps, I don't know, I guess it's as dramatic in its own sense, but the internet has made it a lot more possible for the individual to gain knowledge and information. And whenever anybody that tries to keep or hold on to that knowledge is going to lose. And
that really was our biggest enemy, because we tried to be the source for the information, and we wanted to hang on to that. You have to come to us to get it. Consumers aren't going to allow that.
It doesn't work.
As a technologist in real estate, the Dark Ages was the 1980s. When that information was locked in that book, and the only way that you could share it was to rip out a page and hand it to somebody. And then all of a sudden, the internet came along, information started flowing out, consumers started getting involved in that, and truth is, it has been a fantastic thing for both the professionals and for the consumers.
Absolutely.
I absolutely agree.
Well, one of the things I think it's important, I got to give credit to a different title company on this one. Max over at First American Title in Kingwood did a presentation the other day.
Can we send them an invoice?
Yes, exactly, right?
Okay.
And one of the things he was talking about is it was pretty interesting, and I think this speaks very well to where Zillow is today. Is it talks about how in the United States we have gone through a transformation of societies, right? We started off as being an agricultural society. When the Pilgrims came over, they put the seeds down, agriculture came, right? Then afterwards, we ended up putting up railroads, and what did we end up becoming? The industrialization age, okay? Then guess what ended up happening? We ended up getting into technology, so then we became the technology-oriented economy. After the technology-oriented economy, we ended up becoming a services economy, right? Because all the manufacturing went overseas. You know what economy we're in today?
Information.
We are actually in the experience economy. Individuals who do any transaction nowadays really want to have an experience. It's not only so they take all that information, but now it's an experience economy. And it's called sort of the Disney effect, right? When you go to Disney, you don't go to Disney to ride to Disney World. You don't go there to ride all the rides. You don't go there to buy all the stuff. That's what you end up doing. You go there for the experience. You go there to get away. Same exact thing.
That my charrier. Guess what my theme was?
What?
Experience.
And so that's the new model that we're at. So some of the things we're talking about with Zillow right now is about that experience. It's about bringing together an experience on online networking aspect of things to have an individual go out there and to start that conversation. And that's really where the market we're in right now.
I think it makes a lot of sense that we move from information and you provide information. Well, what happens then is you become overwhelmed. We're a 160 character thought, generation now. So give me the bullet point, that sort of thing is the summation of everything. So what's the natural iteration of that is ratings and reviews.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
And we talked like that at Strat Planning, is that we have 4,400 that are being rated on HAR right now, but we have 27,000 members.
Right.
And so they don't get the need and want of the consumer who wants to be rated. And of course, our next person coming up, Kimberly, I know she's rated.
Right.
Like that. But I want you to do a wrap up, and we don't want you to go away because we like to interact.
We're still here. We have plenty of time still.
We've got plenty of time.
We have lots of time because there's no commercials.
If you had a consumer in front of you right now, and you have many thousands in front of you, what do you want them to know about Zillow?
So Zillow is in the business of creating fantastic experiences for consumers to engage with real estate information, whether you're a renter, whether you're looking at mortgages, whether you're looking to buy, whether you're looking to sell. And then it's a community where you can then connect with the professionals that are there that can actually then walk you to that next stage. But even if you're not in that place, go on there, take a look at your house, have fun with it. Look at your neighbors, see what their house is worth.
Yeah, go and dig. Dig's a lot of fun.
Digs is great because Digs is a place where you can actually get engaged with what your home might look like if you did some remodeling and if you did upgrades. It's all those dream houses that you just love to purview through. It's like Pinterest for real estate. You can go and take a look at all of that beautiful information.
I think that's when I knew the realtors started embracing you. When you came up with Digs, all the realtors were going, have you been to Digs? Have you been there? It's awesome. And so you started making friends with the realtor community
Absolutely.
And the consumer at that same time. Well, thank you.
I really love the idea. I never thought of it, and it really kind of crystallized a thought. I'm not a realtor. I love real estate. I've been connected to it for many years, but I'm not a realtor, so I don't see through those eyes. I'm a marketing guy, and that's what I do, and that's what I love. The idea that Zillow is the Facebook for real estate is a brilliant way to say that. That gave me a way to see it that makes a lot of sense in my world, and that I could go and interact with my home and correct information or update information or
And more than just your home. Your home lives in an area, and that area is part of a community, and that community has schools, and so there's people on there that you'll meet, and they're all talking about how do we make this place where we live better or different or change. And so
it's really a fascinating way to look at it.
Community.
Wikipedia. It's this model to me. It makes sense like this. And Microsoft was producing Encarta. And they had the millions of dollars and the top editors and all. Nobody would have ever said what's going to succeed. You've got millions of dollars backing this project against the consumer, for free, volunteers.
Right. And look what shows up number one all the time. Wikipedia always shows up number one when you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's more than just the community aspect, because that's a huge part of Wikipedia. But it's also the fact that you can connect some stuff. You're reading something, and there's links in there, and you click on that, and now you're looking at this,
and you can add to it.
And you can add to it. You can correct. You can change. It grows with the community.
Yep.
And we are an information society.
That's fascinating.
And every year, and this is Google stats, every year we actually create more information than has existed in the prior years combined.
Wow.
You take everything from the beginning of time up to last year. This year we'll create more information than that. And so there's no way that a static environment can keep up with that. And so you have to have the whole world involved in this process.
You have to have a community.
Well, one of the things is...
It takes a village.
It does take a village, right? We have another guest we're going to bring on right now. But before we do so, we don't have any commercials. I do want to give some shout-outs to some of our great sponsors that make this show happen.
Oh, you mean we actually have to be able to pay for the show?
We have to actually pay for the show every once in a while, right? So, I want to give a big shout-out to everyone who makes this happen, especially today, having some great guests on board. Capital Title, obviously.
Capital Title.
One Guard Home Warranties.
Yes.
With all the girls over there. Great individuals. Permapeer, who we always have a great time talking about cracks.
The funniest shows we've ever had.
Absolutely. Cannot ever downplay that one. Down Under Pools, who we had a great concert with about a week ago. Brought in Bill Chaplin. It was very good right there. A.B. Bowles Inspections, who is absolutely just an incredible inspector. And so, we want to give always the shout-outs to all those individuals who do make this happen, especially today.
Dimensions by Dan.
Dimensions by Dan.
Can't forget Dan.
That is correct, because, today we have a show that's running all the way through, and so that
Why
is
not?
One of the things that we always want to do is give some big shout-outs right there. So,
well, thank you for doing that, Chris.
A little bit of me and a whole lot of you. Add a dash of starlight and a dozen roses too. Then let it rise for 100 years or two. And that's a recipe for making love. It doesn't need sugar.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And we are back.
Yes.
Having a good time as usual.
We are having a good time.
And speaking of some good shout-outs, one of the things we've been sitting here, we've been speaking with Zillow, and we have actually one of the power users and a great individual who woke up early this morning, made the trek up 45 and then down 59 over here to the studio. Kimberly, how you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate
Kimberly Harden
it.
with Remax. Remax, which
Remax Space Center down in Lake City.
Big office down there.
Yep. That is correct.
And you are like one of their stars. You're absolutely a rock star down there. So talk about a little bit how'd you get into real estate?
I got into real estate in 2003, and I can't help but think about the word change as we're sitting here talking about Zillow. When I joined in 2003 and got into the industry, there were top producers in my office who still did not use email. And I didn't understand that in 2003 especially. Looking today, those agents aren't in the business anymore.
What a surprise.
So what I adapted early on in my professional career is change. And I think Zillow is a part of that. Zillow is giving consumers what they want. And I think that realtors have to learn to adapt to that change because it's here. And they also give transparency, which I think is important. I am rated on Zillow.com. And you're absolutely right. If you think that makes me work a little bit harder for my client because I want that good review.
Oh, yeah.
Accountability is a huge piece. I mean, again, restaurants, hotels, the experience that consumers are having, they want to go see what other people did before they want to do business with you.
Absolutely. It's all about transparency and change in this business. And I encourage agents to research and investigate Zillow if you're not currently on there and see what it has to offer for you.
Well, I'm as ADD as they come, so I can testify to this personally. Even my partners joke about it. They're like bullet points for Joe, because I don't want to read 10 pages of stuff. Just bullet point.
That's why you went to books on CDs.
Yeah, absolutely. I only listen to audiobooks. I don't have time or mental attention for actually turning the pages. And so for me, ratings and reviews critical. It doesn't matter what I'm buying. I can tell you if it's a book or a multi-$1,000 purchase, I always have the same technique. I go look at the rating. Once I find a rating I like, I go in and look at the best reviews and the worst reviews. I usually read one or two of each, right?
Absolutely.
To get the summation of two. And I think that's very normal in our society. And I certainly would do the same approach with a house or a realtor or anything else. That's my behavior in the online world.
Absolutely, I agree.
Have you gotten? So you've said this week when we were, of course, Kimberly was down with Strat Planning with us in Galveston, and you said you had gotten a listing off of Zillow. Was it off the rating side of it, or was it off another part of Zillow?
It was off my Agent Premier page. Typically we think of buyers on Zillow looking for homes, but in my experience, and I've been on Zillow now for several years, we are seeing more and more sellers go to Zillow to start that selling process and start thinking about selling, getting tips and ideas on what is needed. So I did actually get an email this week from a seller who found me on Zillow, said he read my reviews.
Awesome.
And wanted to connect with a top producer in the area who, again, is showing that transparency and seeing other consumers talk about my services down in Leak City.
Well, with inventory being where it's at right now, obviously Houston has an all-time low inventory. That's a great point to put out, though. I mean, individuals are starting to call up. I mean, the phone calls I get, traditionally speaking, are about pre-approval. But then the next phone call, the next question they ask me is, but do you think now is a good time to list my home, right?
Absolutely.
Because I hear it's a seller's market. Mm-hmm. Obviously, my first thing is you need to go back to your agent. That's the one thing. But, as you're mentioning, I think that's a great point to follow up with, because it is right now an opportunity to put your home on the market. It's something that we plead with. Rob pleads with it every day. Go out, find an agent, put your home on the market. We need inventory. Mm-hmm. And to see that Zillow is actually helping you create that market from a listing is very, very neat. What else has Zillow done? I mean, obviously, for the past 2 years you've been with Zillow. How have you seen that change your market, not only from a listing standpoint, but just the interaction? Obviously, you've got the reviews that you're doing, you've got listings that you're doing. Mm-hmm. How do you address when a client comes to you and does something like the Zestimate, by the way? Always like to throw that out there.
Well, I think the word validation comes to mind. I've been a top producer in my community for 10 years now, down in Leak City. But when someone can go online and see an unbiased opinion about my services that I didn't go post about myself, someone else did, I think it validates my services and who I am to that consumer, and makes them feel more comfortable about me being a community top producer, knowing that area.
And inversely, that happens if you have someone say maybe it's a good review, but there's a couple of things they might mention. It makes you a better realtor.
Oh yeah,
because,
absolutely.
But realtors as a whole fear this. They don't want we're pleasers. We don't want anybody to not like us or to not be pleased by us.
This may be a question for the both of you, actually. On reviews, one thing that I see in the review world, and this is something that's very key to me as a marketing guy, we look at this on a regular basis, understanding that reviews are really a critical component of the online world now. Having a managed review service, having a third-party review service, or so that the consumer knows it's an unbiased source that is monitored, so that we know that we're not just getting a bunch of bogus reviews out there created by the business owner or the person that's being reviewed. I think that's huge. That helps customers understand. The next step then to me with the review process, and so I don't know this about Zillow, is, and I see y'all are getting selfies over here, and I feel left out.
Hey, it's an ussy.
It's an ussy. That's right. It's my own term, and I'm forgetting it now. I don't know this about Zillow, so this is a question for both of you guys. Is now we have reviews out there, and we have customers that post reviews, and we use a monitor review service on our website that allows us, when a review happens, allows us to respond as a business. And I think that's a critical component because hey, everybody makes mistakes, and mistakes happen. I had a friend of mine once tell me a genius line that it's sometimes genius is not in being flawless, it's in how well you recover. And I thought that was brilliant. Does Zillow have a means for the realtor to respond and interact with the review service?
Yes, and so two things. First of all, anyone who does a review has to have had a interaction with the agent. So it can't just be random. So that is actually monitored. You have to be actually in a relationship with the agent,
awesome.
On the buy side or the sell side. Doesn't have to go through the transaction but you have to have had that connection. And so these are real people that have had real experience with that agent. And then there are occasionally bad reviews where something goes sideways in the transaction. And that may not always be the realtor's fault, or maybe they could have placated it. But the truth is, as a consumer audience, you trust somebody more who looks human. Mm-hmm. And if it's all 5 stars all across the board and not a single bad word, it doesn't feel real. Right. And we know that as people. So agents will get a bad review, and it's exactly like you said. It's how they handle it. How do they respond? How did they clean it up? And what was their the interaction? So there can be an ongoing dialogue in the review process. And you can probably speak to that as a firsthand.
I can, and as a matter of fact, I have to give a shout out to one of the greatest associations I've been a part of, and that's the Houston Association of Realtors. And early on, I participated in the client rating review. And I'm happy to say that I've kept an average of about 4.9. But a few months ago, I did get a rating of 3 stars. And I appreciated the fact that HAR allowed me to go on there and tell that seller who lived in the suburbs, and shout out to my dad in Santa Fe. We grew up, he has land out there and we have chickens. Well, in the suburbs, chickens aren't as accepted. Well, the seller had chickens in his backyard. So we had a little bit of a difficult time selling his property. After getting the 3 stars, I was able to go on there and comment on the public page and say, we did have a bit of a challenge with the chickens in your backyard trying to sell, and I'm sorry about that, but at the end of the day, we did get your home sold. So people still read that, and they'll send me emails, gosh, you really had chickens in the backyard
stories.
of a Lake City neighborhood. But I appreciated the fact to go on there and defend myself on the 3 stars.
Sometimes a sane response to a crazy review helps your business more than anything.
The crazy thing we've done, we've actually gone, so every closing that I do, we actually send out 3 reviews. We send out one to the listing agent, one to my client, and one to the buyer's agent. Now, it's always funny, right? Because you always know which one is going to rate you bad, by the way. Because, if you don't close on time, you absolutely know that the seller's agent's going to nail you on it, right? But the other day, though, we had a file that was took a little while, by the way, a lot longer than we all anticipated, but there was a lot of challenges to it. But the service was excellent. When I got back the reviews, as you mentioned, the reviews on my side it had some challenges to it. So I called up and I spoke to my client, and she said, "Oh, you were great. What I didn't like was this, that, and the other." But what actually came out in the review didn't come out that way, right? It was, I didn't like this, I didn't like this, I didn't like the fact we didn't close on time, et cetera, et cetera. But it was crisp. But everything you did was great because we ended up closing. So a lot of times also, I like what you said. You have to be able to go back and understand where that review, because I always tell everybody is a review gives me an opportunity to improve. Because on my side of things, I have to impact I have an opportunity to create a relationship with the listing agent, because my buyer's agent obviously on my side right there, but also reinforce that buyer's agent and hopefully get a referral out of my client. But if you don't have the ability to go back and have that communication, it can be challenging.
And as Curt said, it's about being real to the people. They want to see what you have to say, the feedback, on the reviews, and I think it keeps everything transparent.
Right. And then you take those reviews, and this is something that's it's evident on your page as well, Kimberly. It's also your transactions. So not only what have people said about you, but what have you actually done? And so the other important thing is it's your resume, right? It's your online resume. This is what I am as a professional. These are the homes I currently have listed. These are the ones I worked with in the past, either on the buy side or the sell side. You would not hire somebody without at least looking to see what they have done in the past and maybe talking to a few people about what their work experience with this person was. It's the same thing. You're hiring somebody. This is your resume. What did other people feel like when they worked with you? And then what have you actually done? Did you do anything that was similar to what you're trying to do with me? So I know now that if I want to sell a house with chickens, exactly where to go.
I was looking the other day for a house with chickens. I wanted some fresh eggs, so I could have bought that listing. It had all the chickens I wanted.
So that's the takeaway from the show. Kim is in the market to sell houses with chickens.
No, you know what the takeaway from the show is no one puts Bo in the corner, and he's sitting over there in the corner.
He's hanging over in the corner.
He's being all quiet over there.
I'm enjoying the conversation.
Bo is my best kept secret. He is actually a huge part of my business. He's kind of the silent partner, unfortunately, but I really appreciate it.
He's been silent over in the corner. I'm trying to give him a mic.
I let Kimberly be the face. I mean, she's done just sitting back watching her. She amazes me to this day. Of course, I grew up with her in the business, just watching her. I was in another industry. But even to this day, just seeing how she manages clients in multiple deals at the same time, it's fascinating. So she is definitely the steam behind the engine.
Well, that is great. Tonight, we always like to acknowledge everybody who's here. Obviously, you did a big shout out to your father who's listening to us right now. But also, Bo's a big part of your success and your organization and your life. And, one of the things we tell everybody is real estate is still very personal. No matter what you do, it's always fun to bring people on, bring their teams on board, bring their significant others on board, even bring their children. We have people who come on the show all the time, bring their children, because real estate is a part of their life. It's, generally speaking, as you mentioned, one of the largest purchases someone's going to make. in their life, and it's great being a part of that, whether it be on the financing side or finding them home side or the listing side. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I always talk about real estate touches everything, and everything touches real estate. It's that big. I mean, you don't go anywhere without being on real estate. Well, maybe.
And real estate is bigger than just the buying and selling of homes. Because one of the other parts that is a significant part of Zillow's life is the rental space. And because we have now all of these millennials.
Stop kicking things over there, Curt.
Yeah, Kurt's about 6'5", and we didn't, I guess, give him enough knee space.
I just kneecapped myself here.
Call our workman comp guy and get it to work. But anyway, we're in the middle of a thought here.
But the whole next generation is coming up. We have the millennials, and some of them have them as kids, and some of us act like them. And that whole generation is in the rental space right now. And so they're looking at rentals. They want a lifestyle around that. And we know that they are moving towards home ownership. Mm-hmm. And so that whole environment around the rental space and the people are in that and then transitioning to home ownership is a key piece. And so that's where Zillow has that full ecosystem, everywhere from someone who is looking at homes, someone who currently owns one, is not interested in selling, someone who is renting, all the way to someone who is buying. It's actually that full rounded experience.
Yeah, in fact, rental has gotten to be such a huge part of real estate. We actually emulated some of that, and we started putting on rentals onto HAR that were not actually listed with MLS, like the apartments and things like that. It's now on har.com.
Yeah.
So
Zillow's the largest rental site on the
and so
internet.
you've beat out was rental.com was a big piece now. Have you kind of edged them out now?
Yep. So
very nice.
Look out! It's a steamroller. It's just coming through the industry, but y'all have just done a remarkable job, and that's why we love to have downstrat planning. Is that we learned so much from that, and of course you look at Kimberly here has made it into a money producing aspect of her business.
Yes, Robin. I have to say to those realtors who are still apprehensive about Zillow and they're not sure what to say to that seller who has them into the home to say, but Zillow says my home is worth this and you're telling me it's worth less. The realtor just needs to remember to remind the seller, but Zillow hasn't been inside your home. They haven't seen your avocado appliances and your orange shag carpet.
And your chickens.
And the chickens in the backyard.
So that's where the realtor, that gives the real estate agent a great opportunity to go back and make that personal connection. Zillow's not sitting across from your breakfast table hearing about your personal situation and why you need to sell this home.
Zillow opens doors.
Hey, there's a new product for you.
It's a network that opens doors.
Kurt?
One of the things I was going to ask you is...
A chickstimate.
Because... a chickstimate, that's pretty good. Is, one of the things that talk a little bit about how Zillow is out there working with the different associations to integrate and obtain data from there, and how you're not one of those individuals going out there working against those areas. You're actually out there working for and with the real estate community.
We are, and we've had a fantastic relationship with HAR, the Houston Association of Realtors, here for many years. They were one of the most progressive ones early on. They said, we are the most progressive.
Well,
you are the most progressive. And early on, you said that we see an opportunity here to enhance the connection of our realtors with the consumer audience. And so they've been participating with Zillow for many, many years. And so as a part of my role at Zillow is actually going out and speaking to all of the other associations and all of the other multiple listing services and inviting them to participate as well, because we have most of the data. And it comes through a variety of ways, and the best way to have the most accurate information is to actually connect to the source, right? You bottle it at the source. And so that's going directly back to the brokers, directly back to the MLSs. And so that's what we're on a campaign to do right now, is connect with those sources to make sure we have the most accurate information on there to make the experience on both sides, the consumer side and the realtor side, better.
And of course, we've had some associations have made foolish choices, and I'll use the city of Austin as one of them. They actually pull out of Zillow, but what it does is the big brokers still are on Zillow, and they've hurt the small brokers.
Yeah, so we have relationships, of course, all the large franchises, all the large brokerages, their data continues to go there. It's a more of a struggle for the smaller brokers when the MLS or the association doesn't participate. But, it's up to us to go out there, demonstrate the value, have those conversations, still that personal touch. to make sure that they understand why those decisions need to be reversed.
And another, maybe the next group of people come up as leadership will kind of recognize this wasn't the right thing to do.
Yeah, that is true. Time flies when you're having fun, and we are already on the 3-minute mark.
Flies when they took 8 minutes away from them. I think they owe us 8 minutes. I think we'll send them an invoice.
That is correct. That is correct.
That was the most expensive 8 minutes. So in parting, we start with Curt. So wrap up, kind of like a synopsis of your visit today.
So in this modern world, where information is at our fingertips, we have more computing power stuck in our back pocket, and if you sit on it with an iPhone 6, then you have to, unbend it.
Dang, I've got a 6 Plus.
Little dig at the 6s I'm surrounded with. I'm still stuck with my 5 here. It comes down to two things. Can I get access to the information the way that I want it, when I want it? Can I do the research? And then can I connect with a professional? And that's all that Zillow is trying to do, is build this exciting environment where consumers are engaged and they can get involved, and then they can make those connections and move on with their life.
Well, you did you've all done a remarkable job. There's no doubt.
Oh, I would absolutely
Kimberly,
agree.
kind of same question. Kind of wrap up in your business and using technology and Zillow specifically.
I would just encourage the realtors out there who have not embraced Zillow yet or even researched it to think about change and innovation, and that is what this industry is about. I've seen a huge change since I got in the business 11 years ago, and I think it's going to continue to change. Consumers are going to get what they want, and I would just encourage realtors. And
it kind of goes back to what you had actually said earlier, is that we like to do the things that used to work.
Oh yeah,
and of course it's moved. It's like Who Moved My Cheese or Icebergs Melting, all those books that are so great to talk about. It's in a changing environment, and it's an ever-changing environment. And Zillow is a prime example. They've embraced it.
But I think the one thing we've seen here is everyone has a passion for what we do. Everyone has a passion for being out there. Kimberly's no different. She has been extremely successful for 10 years. And the reason why, she has a passion for what she does. Zillow, same thing with Curt over here. One of the things we always like to leave is with a quote, and today is no different. Teresa, thank you very much. She sent it back in today. She's back with the pack.
Yay.
You wouldn't be who you are without all the difficult times. Be thankful, even during the trials. I think that's always a good one right there.
Wonderful.
Until next time, we are out.
Thanks, guys.
And you've been listening to the Real Estate Rat Pack. The question is, who's Frank, who's Sammy, who's Dean, and who's the other guy?
Chris is Frank, he's Dean, and I'm Sammy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So tune in to the really big show every Saturday at 9 a.m. right here on 100.7 The Word, KKHT.